Sit down or get out. That's what my dad snapped at me when I tried to speak up at my younger brother's engagement party. I wasn't yelling, just telling the truth. Here's the kicker, I had spent $5,000, for what was supposed to be a baby shower for my firstborn. But instead? That money got rerouted. Quietly, of course. My parents took it and poured it into another celebration, for their favorite. Their golden boy. Like always. They probably thought I'd stay quiet. That I'd swallow it. Again. And for a while, I did. But then, 2 years went by. And just when I thought I was done with all of it, they came knocking. Needing something. Needing me. So, this is my story. Read it. Sit with it. And then tell me, was I wrong not to help them? Hey there, I'm Ethan Caldwell. I'm 30 now. I live just outside Portland with my wife and our little boy, who's 3 and already got more energy than I know what to do with. Life's not perfect, but it's solid. It's peaceful. And a big part of that comes from 2 things. 1, I've got a good, steady job. And 2, I inherited $1 million from my grandfather. Now, that money? It wasn't supposed to all go to me. At least not in the beginning. His will originally split everything evenly, between my parents, my younger brother Logan, and me. But 3 years ago, something shifted. Something big. It started when my first son was born. I figured we'd celebrate. Nothing huge, just a simple family get-together to welcome him into the world. My mom even pitched the idea, and I thought, sure, why not? So I sent her $5,000 to cover the whole thing. I trusted her with it, thinking it'd be a sweet little gathering. Just some love, some warmth. A way to introduce our baby to the family. But when we got there, I was hit with a reality I wasn't ready for. The entire setup, decorations, music, food, people, it was all for someone else. My brother's engagement party. Not a single balloon for my kid. Not a single, congratulations, or smile for my wife, who was standing there, arms wrapped around our newborn, looking completely out of place in a backyard full of laughter that wasn't meant for us. Nobody said a word about our baby boy. Not even a, hey, glad you're here. Just silence. As if we were strangers who walked into the wrong celebration. And the only one who noticed? My grandfather. He didn't say anything that day, just sat there quietly. But a few weeks later, he made a move I'll never forget. He went to his lawyer and rewrote his will. He was sharp as ever, totally in control of his decisions. And he signed it right then and there, in front of witnesses, with full mental clarity. A year after that, he passed away. And when the will was made public? Boom. It was like someone dropped a bomb on my family. Every single cent. The shares. The properties. Everything, had been left to me. I grew up in a family that wasn't struggling. Money wasn't the issue. And there was love, just not the kind that gets handed out evenly. What we lacked was fairness. And over time, that gap between me and Logan only got wider. When we were young, my parents made a real effort to treat us equally. Matching outfits on holidays, equal turns with toys, classic sibling stuff. And if one of us got in trouble, the other had to sit through one of Dad's lectures too. We were a package deal. But then something happened when I turned 12. Logan's teacher called home and said he had some special talent for business. He's got a mind for finance, she said. Natural leadership. From that day on, it was like a switch flipped. Mom bought him the fancy version of Monopoly, sent him off to business camp, and every dinner turned into a TED talk about Logan's future billion-dollar ideas, even when he still had spaghetti sauce on his chin. And me? I wasn't flashy. I wasn't fast. But I showed up. I finished things. I paid attention to details. I worked hard, even if no one noticed. I never got called a genius. Never got the spotlight. But I never let people down either. Thing is, my hard work? It just didn't shine the same way to them. Over the years, the favoritism got louder. Clearer. I kept a near-perfect GPA all through middle school. Not once did a teacher have a complaint. I even got a certificate from the principal for going above and beyond. You know what Dad did? He nodded. Logan won a pitch contest at school and suddenly mom's lighting candles for him at dinner and calling it a celebration. I wasn't bitter. But I wasn't blind either. Logan was the favorite. The golden one. And I? I was background noise. The only reason I made it through those years without going numb? Two people. My grandfather. And Uncle Mark. They both lived nearby, and most weekends I'd crash at Grandpa's place. Unless exams were coming up or something school-related got in the way. To most folks, my grandfather came off as cold. Strict. Kept to himself. But I saw a different side. A quieter version. Those evenings in his kitchen, soft yellow light spilling onto the table, just the two of us, that's where I found peace. You don't need to be someone else to be good, he told me once. I'd skipped Logan's birthday that year, I was too hurt. Grandpa just patted my shoulder and said, "Do your part. Keep your heart clean." Sometimes, he'd ask me to help in the backyard. And after we were done, he'd slip a $100 bill into my hand. Sometimes two. Sometimes three. "Save this for school," he'd whisper. "Don't tell anyone. If your mom finds out, I'm in trouble." I'd always nod. Always tucked it away without a word. Uncle Mark, though, he was different. He asked questions. How was school? How were my friends? What things felt unfair? He showed me how to open a bank account. How to fill out financial aid paperwork. And how to understand something that took me years to truly believe. Sometimes, the people you call family aren't your safety net. But if you're lucky, they'll hand you something even better, a walking stick. So you can find your own way. And that's exactly what I needed. Right after high school, I got a partial scholarship to a private university one state over. That's when I knew, I had to leave. Staying would have meant falling right back into that cycle. Same old favoritism. Same quiet disappointment. I still remember the day I picked up my acceptance letter from the post office. The envelope felt heavy. It smelled like hope. My name, printed in raised gold ink. I ran all the way home. Heart racing. I figured I'd wait till after dinner to share the news. Let the night settle. Give it a nice moment. But as soon as I opened the door, everything changed. Uncle Mark and his family were already there, gathered around the table. Some dinner thing I'd completely forgotten about in all the excitement. And just like that, my moment? It was slipping away again. Dinner that night felt like déjà vu, the same chairs, same conversation patterns, same spotlight on Logan. Mom went on and on about how Logan had been invited to some teen startup workshop in Seattle. Dad nodded proudly and then turned to Uncle Mark, asking about work like nothing else in the world mattered. Meanwhile, I sat there, quiet, invisible, with my college acceptance letter clutched in both hands. Nobody noticed. Nobody asked. It was like I didn't exist. We eventually moved into the living room for tea, and something in me snapped. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I stood up. My voice was shaky, but I spoke clearly. I got in. Layton University. Partial scholarship. For a few seconds, the whole room went still. Then, finally, Uncle Mark smiled, slapped his knee, and said with this big, genuine grin, "Ethan, that's amazing. You worked hard. You earned this. I'm proud of you." I smiled back, my heart thumping like crazy. I turned to my parents, hoping for just something. A smile. A nod. A "good job." Instead, my dad leaned back, crossed his arms, and said with a tone so cold it cut straight through me. "Partial, huh? That still leaves a lot of costs, tuition, housing, books. That's not exactly cheap." I swallowed the lump in my throat and tried to stay composed. "I know. That's why I'm only asking for 10 grand to get started. I'll handle everything else from there." Mom set her teacup down like she was preparing to lecture me. "Ethan, be realistic. We can't throw money at something with no guaranteed return. Logan's different. He's got potential. He's going to take this family somewhere." That last part, "he's different," hit me hard. She said it like I wasn't even in the room. Like I was someone else's kid. Dad nodded like she'd just confirmed a business deal. "You didn't do anything wrong," he said, almost like he was doing me a favor. "But if we have to choose where our support goes, it's going to Logan." I could barely breathe. I'm not asking to be the favorite, I said. I'm asking for fairness. And the way he looked at me, like I was speaking another language. In this house, he said coldly, fair doesn't mean equal. Fair means putting things where they belong. Then came the final blow. If you can't accept that, then maybe it's time you moved out. I was stunned. Couldn't say a word. I turned to Mom, one last time, hoping for something, anything. But she just stared at the floor. Said nothing. Then, out of nowhere, Uncle Mark's voice cut through the tension like a blade. Do you two really believe that? Both of these boys are your children. How can you sit there and act like Ethan doesn't deserve the same chance? Dad didn't even look at him. This is our family's business. Don't get involved. No one said another word after that. 2 minutes later, Uncle Mark stood up. His wife and son followed him. They walked out without looking back. I went upstairs, closed my bedroom door, and left the lights off. That letter I was so proud of. I sat there on the floor, still holding it, trying to understand how something that was supposed to be my moment had become just another reminder of how small I was to them. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, my thoughts spinning non-stop. Part of me wanted to pack a bag and leave right then and there. But I didn't. I wasn't ready. Not yet. Next morning, around 8 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was Uncle Mark. Ethan, he said, calm but firm, come over. Now. I didn't ask why. Just threw on whatever clothes I could find, got in my car, and made the short drive to his place. When I walked into the kitchen, the air was filled with the warm smell of fresh coffee. He handed me a mug, sat across from me, and didn't waste time. I'm giving you $50,000. No interest. Pay it back within 5 years after you graduate. Deal? I was stunned. I couldn't even speak. My glasses fogged up from the steam, but that warmth in my chest. That was something else entirely. I looked down, my hands folded tight, then back up at him. My voice was barely above a whisper. Why? Why would you do this for me? He didn't answer right away. Just turned his mug slowly in his hands. Then he looked me in the eyes. Because I've watched you be mistreated for far too long. And I won't let that injustice decide your future. He paused, like he was searching for the exact right words. You deserve a fair shot. Not because of your last name. But because you've earned it. And I swear, my heart clenched. Not from pain, but from something I'd never really felt before. Being seen. Fully, deeply, without conditions. I only need 10, I muttered. That's all I'm asking. 50's too much. He shook his head. No. I don't want you working night shifts or driving Uber just to stay afloat. I don't want you falling asleep in class because you're juggling 3 jobs. Then he said the part that really hit home. If you fall, no one in that house is going to catch you. But I will. I sat there, completely speechless. My throat tightened. My chest burned with something between relief and heartbreak. One more thing, he added, more serious now. Don't tell your parents. If they know you've got this money, they'll suck it dry before you get a chance to use it. I nodded fast. I promise. On the way home, I opened a new bank account. 2 days later, the money showed up, $50,000. Just like he said. I stared at that number, hands trembling. Not because of the size of the gift, but because someone finally believed in me. No strings. No expectations. Just trust. And in that moment, I realized, if anyone ever earned the title of Dad in my life, it wasn't the man who raised me. It was Uncle Mark. College came and went like a breeze. Quiet, steady. My family never found out about the money. Never asked. Never checked in. I only went home when I had to, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Mom's birthday. Weekends? I spent those with Grandpa or Uncle Mark. With the people who actually made me feel like I mattered. Even with the loan, I didn't coast. I picked up part-time shifts at the library and the campus coffee shop. I rarely touched the money unless I had no other option. I poured myself into my studies, applied for every scholarship, every small award, anything that helped. By the time I graduated, I'd only used about $20,000. The rest sat untouched. At 23, I landed my first job at a mid-sized tech company in Seattle. Starting salary, $50K. Back then, that was a solid number for a fresh graduate. I kept it simple. No flashy apartment. No wild trips. Just worked. Saved. Planned for the next step. I didn't splurge. No fancy vacations. No wild weekends. Just quietly chipped away at that $50,000 loan, 1 month at a time. And then, on my 25th birthday, almost to the day, 2 years after I got my first paycheck, I felt ready. I drove over to Uncle Mark's place, heart full and hands steady. The fall air was crisp, and he was outside, raking leaves when I pulled in. I walked right up to him with more confidence than I'd ever felt in my life. "Uncle Mark," I said, "I'm here to pay back every last cent." He paused, wiped his hands on an old rag, and looked at me long and hard. Then, with a small grin, part proud, part serious, he said, "You're not paying me back." Before I could argue, he added, "Come on. There's someone I want you to see." I didn't ask questions. I just followed. 15 minutes later, we pulled up to my grandfather's house. It looked exactly the same. Cozy, still. That familiar brown leather armchair sat by the window, and sure enough, Grandpa was in it, staring out at the garden like he always did. But when he heard the door open, he turned instantly. His hair had gone nearly all white, but his back was straight as ever, and those eyes, still sharp, still full of that steady presence I remembered from being a kid. I was about to speak when Uncle Mark cut in. He turned to me slowly and said, "The $50,000? That wasn't from me. It was from your grandfather." I froze. Uncle Mark looked over at Grandpa, then back at me. "That night, after your parents turned you down, I came here." I told him what happened. I didn't even finish the story before he said, "He's the only one who's never asked for anything. So this time, let him ask." Then his voice softened. But he was scared. Scared that if you knew where the money came from, you might lean on it too much. Scared that if your parents found out, they'd try to get their hands on it. So he asked Uncle Mark to give it to me like a loan. A test. A shield. My throat tightened. I couldn't get any words out. Grandpa slowly stood up, steadying himself on the armrest. Then he walked over and placed his hand on my shoulder, firm, but not heavy. "You kept your word," he said. "You lived with integrity. You didn't run. You didn't ask for more than what you needed." His hand lingered just long enough for me to feel the weight of what he meant. "That money," he said, "doesn't need to be paid back." I looked down. My chest felt like it was going to burst. But I held it in. I wasn't going to cry. Not yet. As I turned to leave, Grandpa said one more thing. "Now that you're out in the world," he said calmly, "don't forget to visit your old man once in a while." I nodded fast, because if I opened my mouth, I knew I'd lose it. Uncle Mark's car was quiet on the ride back. Outside, the sun was dipping low, casting orange light across the dash. I just sat there, letting the warmth hit my face. But inside? Inside I felt something I hadn't really understood until that day. To be truly loved, without earning it, without fighting for it, that's a different kind of peace. Live with integrity. Keep your promises. That's what Grandpa had always believed. And now, so did I. A year later, I met Rachel. She was a nurse. Sweet. Grounded. The kind of person who made you feel calm just by standing next to her. We got married, and not long after, Noah was born. The day he came into this world, man, that changed everything. Suddenly, it all made sense. Every sacrifice. Every sleepless night. Every hard conversation. I worked harder. Came home earlier. And every morning, before anything else, I'd roll over and smile at him, sleeping there beside us, completely at peace. And I started thinking, maybe this little boy, my son, would be the reason my parents finally saw me. Maybe becoming grandparents would soften them. Maybe holding their first grandchild would help them finally let go of all the favoritism and see me for who I was. Maybe they'd love Noah the way I used to wish they'd loved me. But I was wrong. Not only did they not change, they managed to turn one of the most important days of my son's life into something I'll never forget, for all the wrong reasons. What should have been a celebration became a scar. And that scar? It became the final straw, the push I needed to finally, truly walk away. 3 years ago, just a few days after Noah was born, I got a call from my mom. Her voice was warm. Too warm. Like nothing had ever happened between us. "Come home," she said sweetly. "I want to throw a little party for Noah. Just something small to welcome him, bring the family closer." I'll admit it, I was caught off guard. But a part of me still wanted to believe in her. So I said yes. And since she insisted on taking care of everything, I wired her $5,000 to help cover the costs. 2 weeks later, on a Saturday evening around 6 p.m., Rachel and I packed up the baby and headed over. When we pulled into the driveway, I knew something was off. The decorations were over the top. Tables everywhere. String lights lit up the whole backyard. Candles, balloons, a big glittery backdrop in the garden. But as we got closer, my heart sank. The backdrop didn't say, "Welcome baby Noah." Nope. It said, "Logan and Brooke's engagement party." My whole body went cold. I grabbed Rachel's hand tightly. She looked at me, completely lost. And there I was, standing in the yard of the house I grew up in, holding my newborn son. At a party I thought I had paid for. But the celebration wasn't for us. We weren't even part of it. All that emotion I'd been stuffing down for years, it bubbled up like a shaken soda can. I clenched my fists. Looked right at that sign, those big bold letters, and shouted across the yard. "What the hell is this?" The music stopped instantly. Every head turned. My mom rushed over, nervous, flustered. "Ethan, it's a shared party," she said. "I just thought combining them would be easier." I took a step back, looking at her like she was a stranger. "A shared party? Did you even mention that to me?" She said nothing. I pointed at the glittery sign. "Then where's my son's name? Where is Noah in any of this?" Still silence. Then Dad came out of the house, hands in his pockets, voice low and sharp. "Don't make a scene. Are you trying to embarrass the family?" And in that moment, I broke. Not in a loud way. But something inside me snapped. I looked to the side, and there they were. Grandpa. Uncle Mark. Standing near the edge of the garden. Quiet. Watching. And both of them gave me a small nod. That was all I needed. I turned back to Dad, my voice louder now, fueled by years of pain. "This image of family you're always trying to protect, did it ever actually include me?" I stepped forward. I gave Mom $5,000 to throw a welcome party for my son. My son. I thought maybe, just once, I'd get to be seen. Be celebrated. My voice cracked, but I kept going. But no. Of course not. Nothing's changed. Still the same old lies. Still making me feel like the outsider in my own story. And that must have been the moment my father finally lost control. He snapped, his voice sharp, rough, like gravel being scraped across pavement. "Shut up, or get out." I stared straight into his eyes. Said nothing. Then, without a word, I walked up to the stage and grabbed the mic from the stunned MC. The whole backyard went silent. You could hear people breathing. I raised my head. My voice didn't shake. I made sure every word landed like it was meant to. "If you're confused about what's going on," I said, looking out over the crowd, "let me make it simple." I scanned the faces, my aunts, uncles, cousins, even some old friends from Brooke. And there she was, Logan's fiancée, standing stiff beside him, eyes wide. "This party you're all enjoying?" I said. "I paid for it." Gasps. Murmurs. Confused looks everywhere. I gave my mom $5,000, I continued. It was supposed to be a welcome celebration for my newborn son, Noah. Instead, they used that money to throw Logan's engagement party. Quietly. Without even telling me. The crowd shifted, awkward glances bouncing from face to face. I gripped the mic a little tighter. My voice dropped a notch. "And this? This isn't the first time. My scholarships have been pulled. I've been told to wait my turn, to figure things out alone. Because, in this family, I was never the priority." I looked over at Logan. He's always been the golden boy. The center of everything. Then I paused. Took a long, steady breath. My eyes found Rachel in the crowd. She was holding Noah, his tiny cheeks pink, his eyes wide from all the noise. But today is different. Because now I'm a father. And my son will never grow up feeling invisible the way I did. I slowly lowered the mic. The air was frozen, no movement, no whispers. For the first time in my life, nobody tried to cut me off. Nobody tried to silence me. My voice echoed across the yard that had spent years pretending I didn't exist. Then I saw movement, my father. He was heading toward the stage, fast. His face twisted in rage like he wanted to rip the mic right out of my hand. But he didn't get far. Uncle Mark stepped out, just in time. He blocked his path, calm but solid. They stood just a few inches apart, eye to eye. Uncle didn't flinch. Didn't say a word. He raised his hand, gently, but with purpose, and placed it right on my father's chest. Not aggressive. Just enough to say, not this time. Not to him. Not to Ethan. And somehow, that was louder than anything I'd said. My father froze. His fists clenched, but he didn't move. Didn't speak. I turned back to the guests. My voice still steady, maybe even stronger now. Some of you might think I overreacted today. But this party? It wasn't the beginning. It was just the last drop in a glass that's been spilling for years. I looked right at my parents, not with anger, not anymore. Just a deep, hollow kind of exhaustion. And one day, if Noah asks me about his grandparents, I said, pausing to let the silence wrap around every word, I'll tell him the truth. Then I spoke slowly, like each word weighed 1,000 pounds. I'll tell him you're dead. You could hear a pin drop. Even the cicadas stopped humming. I kept going. From this moment forward. I'm not your son. Go live your lives with your golden child. No one said a word. No one dared. I dropped the mic, stepped down from the stage, and walked straight to Rachel and Noah. We didn't rush. We didn't run. We just left. And behind us, without a single word, my grandfather and Uncle Mark followed. When we reached the car, Grandpa placed a hand on my shoulder. Looked me right in the eyes. Well done, my boy, he said. In that moment, I knew, I'd done the right thing. The next morning, just as I was finishing my coffee, my phone buzzed. It was Logan. Are you happy now? You ruined everything. Brooke called off the engagement. It's all fallen apart. Because of you. I didn't reply. Didn't even think twice. I held down the message, and deleted it. I didn't want to keep a single word from people who'd only ever seen me as a problem. After that, life got quiet. No more surprise visits. No awkward texts. No forced phone calls with mom and dad. Just peace. Rachel, Noah, and I built a rhythm, slow mornings, laughter at dinner, the kind of peace that doesn't make noise. And on the weekends, we'd take Noah to see Grandpa and Uncle Mark. Grandpa adored him. Absolutely lit up when we walked through the door. He'd just sit there in that same armchair, smiling as Noah crawled around, shaking his toy and giggling. He didn't talk much, just watched. Sometimes he mumbled things softly, like he was speaking to someone only he could see. Maybe the past. Maybe himself. I used to think I'd lost my family. But in those quiet visits, I realized something. I was rebuilding one. The kind that doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to be real. But life has a way of reminding us how fragile that peace can be. A year after Noah was born, on a Monday morning while I was at work, my phone rang. It was Uncle Mark. His voice sounded tight. Ethan, he said. Your grandfather, he's gone. The words hit me like ice water. I just sat there, frozen. 2 days earlier, Grandpa had been fine. He told me he was rereading The Old Man and the Sea. Said he was thinking of buying Noah a big wooden block set. Something to help him build. But I never got to say thank you. Never got to hug him one last time. Losing him wasn't just personal. It was gutting. Because he was the last person in my family who ever truly, unconditionally loved me. He taught me what strength looked like when it didn't shout. A month later, the whole family was called to his house for the reading of the will. By 9 a.m., the living room was packed. You could feel the tension, like static in the air. A silver-haired attorney named James Whitaker stepped forward and got right to it. He went through the formalities, confirming names, dates, that Grandpa had been of sound mind when he wrote the final will. Then he started reading. Everybody had something coming. Uncle Mark got the lakeside cabin and shares in a small construction company Grandpa had invested in quietly. Aunt Beth got the vintage Ford Thunderbird, the one that had been collecting dust in the garage for nearly 20 years. Aunt Janet received a rental property in Tacoma and a generous amount of cash. He kept going, name by name, gift by gift. But when he got to my parents, he stopped. Looked down at the paper. Then up again. And everything went still. Mr. Whittaker glanced down at the page in front of him. Then he looked up and spoke with a voice that was calm but carried a certain finality. "This last part," he said, "is about the assets that, under normal circumstances, would have gone to Mr. Stephen Caldwell and Mrs. Diane Caldwell." Immediately, every head in the room turned toward my parents. My father straightened up, chest puffed out a little, like he was already bracing for the number, already ready to cash in. Mr. Whittaker flipped the page. "After careful and voluntary consideration," he said, "Mr. Edward Caldwell has chosen to transfer all assets originally intended for his son Stephen Caldwell and daughter-in-law Diane Caldwell, to his grandson, Ethan Caldwell." A wave of murmurs rolled through the living room like a shockwave. Then Mr. Whittaker continued, this time reading directly from Grandpa's will. "I do this not out of lack of love for my son, but because I can no longer ignore the injustice Ethan has suffered for so many years. The favoritism shown by Stephen and Diane toward their younger son Logan has done lasting harm. Especially the incident where they used Ethan's money to fund Logan's engagement party, without his knowledge or permission. That was it." The room exploded. Dad jumped up, furious, and slammed his hand on the coffee table. "What? This is insane. It's a setup." He spun around and jabbed his finger toward me. "This is all him, and Mark. They planned this whole thing." My mother burst into tears. Logan, true to form, threw his water glass across the room. It shattered against the floor as his voice cracked. "This isn't fair." But Mr. Whittaker didn't flinch. He tapped his folder once and raised his voice just enough to cut through the chaos. "I'm asking everyone to remain calm." Then he fixed his stare right on my parents and Logan. "Mr. and Mrs. Caldwell. Mr. Logan Caldwell. Please respect the wishes of the deceased. This will is legally binding." It was signed and witnessed while Mr. Caldwell was in full mental clarity, with all documentation complete and verifiable. Any attempt to contest or disrupt this process will result in legal consequences. Just like that, silence fell. Thick, heavy silence. No one said another word. After everything was read, I stepped outside. The air hit different, like the weight of years had finally lifted. But my father was already there, waiting at the gate. He looked at me. Not with rage this time. Something colder. Deeper. Like bitterness that had curdled. "You bastard," he hissed. His jaw clenched so tight, the words barely came out. "You think this means you've won?" I didn't answer. Didn't react. I gave him one long look. Then I walked right past him, got into my car, and drove off. And I didn't look back. Truth be told, I expected fallout. Lawsuits. Angry letters. Maybe even them showing up at my door screaming about betrayal. But nothing ever came. Not a single word. Maybe they finally understood, this time, I wasn't going to fold. This time, I had nothing left to lose. 2 years went by quicker than I thought they would. Noah is 3 now. He's not that fragile little baby anymore, he's a full-blown toddler, tearing through the house, throwing wild tantrums that somehow make me laugh and question my sanity at the same time. Life has been calm. Just me, Rachel, and our boy. A small house with sunlight in every room and real peace in the quiet. We didn't hear from anyone. No surprise visits. No texts. Not even a whisper of the word Mom or Dad. And for a while, I thought maybe, that was it. Maybe they'd finally accepted it. That I was gone from their lives for good. But 2 days ago, just after sunset, the doorbell rang. I opened the door, and froze. It was my mother. She looked thinner. Frilier. Her hair was messy. Her eyes were sunken. She looked older. For a moment, she just stood there. Didn't say anything. Then, finally, in a trembling voice, she said, "Your father's in the hospital. He needs surgery. The doctors say it's serious." I said nothing. "I don't know what to do anymore," she whispered. "Ethan, please. I need $70,000 to cover the surgery. I'm begging you." But I didn't feel anger. And I didn't feel sympathy, either. What I felt was empty. Like her voice was bouncing off a wall that no longer existed in me. I looked her in the eye and asked one question. "Where's Logan?" She swallowed hard. Pressed her lips together. "He doesn't have the money," she said quietly. I nodded once, slow. "Then sell the house you two live in," I told her. "Sell it. Take care of him." She didn't move. I stepped back, my hand resting on the doorframe. "From the day you hurt my son, right after he was born, I stopped being part of this family." And then I said it, with finality. "If you don't leave right now, I'm calling the police." She stood there a second longer. Then turned around and walked away. I closed the door. And I didn't watch her leave. And yet, even now, with everything cut off, with the door finally closed, I still don't feel total peace. There's a part of me that wonders, was I right to turn her away? Was I cruel? Or just protecting what matters? After everything they put me through, I know I don't owe them anything. But if the roles were reversed, if I were the one in that hospital bed, would I want them to show up? And what about Noah? One day, when he's old enough to understand, will he see what I did as strength, or will he wonder why I shut the door on my own mother? I don't know. What I do know is, I'm not that boy anymore. Not the one who stayed quiet. Who took the hits and kept pretending it didn't hurt. I stood up. I drew a line. I protected my son. But at what cost? That's why I'm telling this story, not to be praised. Not to justify myself. But because maybe, just maybe, you've been through something similar. So now I ask you, whoever's still listening. Was I wrong to shut that door? Was I heartless? Or was I finally doing what was right?